I was stirring pasta when he said it. Not yelled, not whispered, just flat, final, like a verdict already decided. "I'm done listening to your feelings and needs," my fiancé said from across the kitchen. "You're too emotional." The wooden spoon paused in my hand. The stove hissed softly behind me. Tomato sauce bubbled over the edge of the pot, splattering onto the burner, but neither of us moved to turn it off. Too emotional. For loving him out loud, for asking questions before signing contracts, for thinking a marriage meant two voices, not one. I looked at him, really looked. His arms crossed, jaw tight, eyes already tired of me. Not angry, dismissive, like I'd become background noise in my own life. "I can't be your therapist," he added. "Every decision with you is exhausting." Something in my chest went quiet, not shattered, not cracked, just switched off. "Noted," I said. That was it. No yelling, no tears, no dramatic exit. I turned off the stove, even though my appetite had vanished, and carried my plate to the sink. He thought he'd won, thought I'd finally learned my place. What he didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was that the moment he told me to stop sharing my feelings was the moment I stopped sharing everything, including the recruiter message waiting in my inbox the next morning, including the job offer that changed my life, including the apartment I'd already found, including the moving truck that would pull up outside our building while he sat on a video call, smiling at his coworkers, completely unaware that his future was being packed into boxes behind him. I didn't leave because I was impulsive. I didn't leave because I was dramatic. I left because I listened. When someone tells you they're done hearing your voice, the most powerful thing you can do is take it away. 6 weeks later, he would stand in an empty apartment, surrounded by silence, wedding plans collapsing in real time, and realize too late what I had understood the instant he dismissed my feelings. A woman who stops talking isn't giving up. She's preparing to walk away. We didn't start this way. That's the part people never understand when everything falls apart. How normal it was in the beginning, how safe it felt, how certain I was that this was it. We met 3 years earlier through mutual friends, the kind of accidental introduction that feels insignificant at the time, but quietly reroutes your entire life. He was charming without trying too hard, confident without being loud. He listened, actually listened when I talked, asked follow-up questions, remembered small details. I remember thinking, this is what emotional maturity looks like. I was wrong, but not right away. Our first year together was easy. Weekend trips, late-night takeout on the couch, conversations that stretched past midnight about childhood, careers, fears we didn't usually admit out loud. When I cried once after a brutal week at work, he held me and said, "You don't have to be strong all the time with me." That sentence mattered. It anchored me. When we moved in together, it felt like the natural next step. My name was on the lease. I'd found the apartment before we were officially living together, but it didn't feel like leverage. It felt like trust. We talked about the future in broad, hopeful strokes. Marriage someday, kids eventually, a shared life built intentionally. The proposal came 9 months in. Nothing flashy, no crowd, just the two of us, a quiet moment, and a ring he'd clearly spent time choosing. I said yes, without hesitation. That was the version of him I believed in. Somewhere along the way, though, the balance shifted. At first it was subtle, small comments disguised as jokes. "You think about things too much." "Why does everything have to be a conversation?" I brushed them off. Everyone has stress. Everyone snaps sometimes. But the more we planned the wedding, the more his family entered the picture, and with them, expectations that felt strangely one-sided. His parents took control quickly. Venue, catering, guest list. They framed it as generosity, but it came with an unspoken message. We decide. I tried to speak up, not aggressively, not dramatically, just questions, clarifications, boundaries. That's when he started sighing. "Can we not do this right now? You're overthinking it. Why can't you just trust the process?" Trust apparently meant silence. The more I asked to be included, the more I was treated like an inconvenience. Emotional, complicated, difficult. Words that landed softly at first, then sharper as time went on. I didn't recognize the pattern right away because I was still trying to be understanding, still trying to be the partner who communicated, who compromised, who believed that if I explained myself clearly enough, he'd meet me halfway. Instead, he pulled back. He handled things without me, made decisions, then informed me after the fact. And when I expressed discomfort, he framed it as a flaw in me. You take everything personally. Why can't you just let things go? I started doubting myself, wondering if I really was too much, too sensitive, too needy. The worst part? I still loved him, loved the memory of who he'd been, loved the idea of what we were supposed to become. So when we sat down that Tuesday evening to discuss the wedding budget, something that should have been practical, boring, manageable, I thought it was a chance to reset, to communicate, to reconnect. I didn't realize I was walking into the moment that would end everything. Because by then, he wasn't interested in listening anymore, and I was closer to leaving than either of us knew. The cracks didn't appear all at once. They spread slowly, quietly, like hairline fractures you don't notice until the pressure becomes impossible to ignore. Wedding planning accelerated everything. His parents had already locked in the venue and catering, $22,000 just like that. It was presented as a gift, but it came with momentum. Decisions made quickly, conversations already finished before I entered the room. When I asked questions, it wasn't received as collaboration. It was received as resistance. We were supposed to split the remaining costs, the bar tab, photographer, DJ, roughly $6,800 each. It wasn't the amount that concerned me. It was the assumption, the expectation that I would simply agree without discussion. One evening, I mentioned, carefully, that maybe we should look at our finances together before committing to anything else, just to be smart, just to be aligned. That's when he slammed his water glass down on the table. "Oh my God," he said, "not this again." I froze. "I just think we should—" "No," he cut in. "I'm done. I'm done listening to your feelings and needs." The words landed harder the second time, like he'd rehearsed them. "Do you know how exhausting it is?" he continued. "Every single decision requires a discussion with you. My mom never acted like this. She just let my dad decide." I remember standing there, holding a spatula, watching steam rise from the pot behind me. Pasta burning, sauce thickening. My hands felt strangely disconnected from my body. "I'm not your mom," I said quietly. He scoffed. "Clearly, she's actually feminine." That was the moment something fundamental shifted. Not just hurt, but recognition. A realization that this wasn't about budgets or weddings or money. It was about control. "You want me to stop sharing my feelings?" I asked. "I want you to stop having so many," he replied. "Or at least keep them to yourself. I can't be your therapist." I nodded. "Noted." He rolled his eyes. "Don't be dramatic." But I wasn't being dramatic, I was being precise. That night, I barely slept. Not because I was angry, but because I was thinking. Replaying conversations from the past year. The sighs, the dismissals, the way my concerns were framed as emotional labor he didn't sign up for. The next morning at 9:23 a.m., a message popped up on my LinkedIn. A recruiter. Senior software architect position. Different state. 850 miles away. The salary increase alone was 6 figures, a signing bonus, full relocation package. Under normal circumstances, I would have run straight to him, shared the excitement, discussed it together, imagined our life there. But those weren't normal circumstances anymore, not after being told my feelings were a burden. So instead, I typed back, extremely interested. When can we talk? Phone screen at 2 p.m. I nailed it. Second interview scheduled for Friday. I didn't say a word. That silence wasn't passive, it was intentional. The first boundary I'd set without asking permission. Over the next few days, I played my role flawlessly. Came home. Answered fine when he asked about work. Let him think everything was normal. Let him think he'd finally trained me into being easy. Friday's panel interview lasted 2 hours. 6 people. I crushed it. They told me I'd hear back Monday. I still said nothing, because for the first time in months, I wasn't trying to be heard. I was preparing to leave. And he had no idea. Monday, 11:08 a.m., the offer arrived. I read it once, then again. At 11:34 a.m., I signed it. Start date? 6 weeks out. That night, I started apartment hunting. 3 days later, I found it. 1 bedroom, clean, quiet. A building that felt like a reset rather than an escape. $680 a month. I signed the lease the same day. First, last, and security. $5,400 total. Move-in date, 5 weeks out. Our current lease ended in 7 weeks. Only my name was on it. I'd signed it before we moved in together. The timing wasn't lucky, it was precise. Wednesday, I gave my 2 weeks' notice at work. My boss was disappointed, but understanding. "You earned this," he said. I thanked him and meant it. At home, I started decluttering, selling furniture, boxing up books, sorting through my life quietly, methodically. He watched with satisfaction. See, he said, this is what I've been saying. You had so much junk. Sure, I replied. 2 weeks before the move, I rented a storage unit, $165 a month. I started moving things there on Saturdays. When he asked, I told him I was donating it all. He smiled, approved. Week 4, his mother called about final wedding details. We need your guest list by next week, she said brightly. Better ask him about that. Is everything okay? You sound off. Just busy, I said. Well, we're very excited. Only 5 months away, right? Week 5, I booked the moving truck. 20-footer. Local company. $950 with insurance. Scheduled for Friday at 9:00 a.m. Weeks earlier, he'd mentioned he'd be working from home that day. Back-to-back video meetings until at least 3. Perfect. Thursday night, I barely slept, not from nerves, but anticipation. Friday morning, he made coffee and settled into the living room with his laptop. Big meeting day, he said. Don't make noise, okay? Won't be a problem. At 8:47 a.m., my phone buzzed. Movers are 10 minutes out. At 8:58, the truck pulled up. The doorbell rang while he was on a video call. Can you get that? He whispered sharply. I opened the door. 3 men with dollies. Here for the move. Yep, I said. Let's do this. They started immediately. The couch went first. He glanced over, eyes narrowing, then widened as he watched it disappear out the door. He held up a finger to his screen. 1 minute, he mouthed. He turned his camera back on, smiling. Sorry about that. Let me share my screen. I texted him, moving. His reply came instantly. What do you mean moving? Exactly what it sounds like. Second trip, my TV, my desk, my bookshelf. Where? He typed. Different state, new job. I watched his face cycle through confusion, panic, and fury, all while he nodded along to his meeting, trapped by his own professionalism. You can't just leave, he texted. We're getting married. You said you were done listening to my feelings, I replied, so I stopped sharing them. At 11:52 a.m., the truck was loaded. I walked over to the table, placed my key and garage remote in front of him. The lease ends in 2 weeks, I said quietly. You're not on it. Figure it out. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. I walked out, closed the door, followed the truck. And just like that, everything changed. The moment I merged onto the highway behind the moving truck, my phone started vibrating against the center console. I didn't answer it. At 12:14 p.m., his first call came through. I let it ring until it stopped. Then another, and another. By the time I stopped for gas an hour later, the screen lit up with 18 missed calls and more than 30 unread texts. I stood next to the pump, the smell of gasoline sharp in the air, and finally read them. Answer your phone. You can't do this to me. Where are you going? What state? I'm calling the police. This is kidnapping. Kidnapping. I laughed once quietly to myself. Of what? The next message read. My own furniture. Then the tone shifted. My mom is freaking out. Everyone is asking where you are. I'll cancel the wedding. You're leaving me with nothing. The apartment is empty. You're a psychopath. I finished pumping gas, got back into the car, and turned my phone off completely. The rest of the drive was peaceful. 6 uninterrupted hours of road, sky widening with every mile. No explanations, no defending myself, just forward motion. I arrived at my new apartment at 7:23 p.m. The movers unloaded efficiently. I tipped them $200 total. By 9:00 p.m., I was alone in a half-empty living room, sitting on my couch, eating Chinese takeout straight from the carton. Then I turned my phone back on. 63 missed calls, over 100 texts, 12 voicemails. The voicemails escalated exactly the way I'd expected. The first was pure confusion. What the hell is going on? Call me back right now. By the third, panic crept in. The landlord says the lease ends in 2 weeks and only your name is on it. What am I supposed to do? By the sixth, blame. My mom is crying. Do you know what you've done? We have to cancel everything. Then anger, sharp and familiar. If you want to throw away 3 years, fine, but you're paying for half this wedding. My parents are getting a lawyer. I listened to them all without reacting. Finally, I sent one text. You told me you were done listening to my feelings and needs. I took you seriously. I stopped sharing everything, including the job offer, the apartment, and the move. The lease ends in 2 weeks. Only my name is on it. Handle it however you want. Do not contact me again. Then I blocked his number, blocked his parents, blocked his siblings. I went to bed and slept deeply. Saturday morning was my first day in the new city. I walked to a cafe, ordered coffee, sat by the window, and felt light. Free in a way I hadn't realized I'd been craving. When I checked my email over breakfast, there were 26 new messages. Him, his mother, His sister, his father, his best friend, 2 cousins, even someone using his mom's email address again. Typing in all caps like volume could replace logic. You have humiliated our family. Do you know what it's like to call 180 people and cancel a wedding? $22,000. $22,000. You will be hearing from our attorney, I replied once. I never signed a contract for the wedding. I never contributed financially. You planned it without my input because your son said he didn't want to hear my feelings. Sue me if you want. You'll lose. His father's email came later, shorter, colder. I raised my son to be strong, maybe too strong. But what you did, leaving without a word, that's not what women do. Women communicate. Women work through problems. Call me. I didn't. I blocked them all. Sunday afternoon, there was a knock at my door. I looked through the peephole. Him, his sister, his mother. 9 hours of driving, apparently, just to be ignored again. I opened the door with the chain still on. How did you get this address? I asked. Your mother gave it to us, his mother said sharply. I made a mental note to have a conversation with my mom later. You need to leave, I said. We drove 9 hours to talk to you, his sister protested. I told you not to contact me. His mother pushed forward, testing the chain. You owe us an explanation. You owe us money. We spent thousands. You spent thousands on a wedding I never agreed to pay for, I said calmly. Your son told me he didn't want my input. He got exactly that. You're twisting everything, his sister yelled. He had one bad day and you blew up your entire life. No, I replied. He had months of bad days. I just stopped pretending they didn't matter. His mother was crying now. We can't get the deposits back. $22,000 is just gone. We're not rich people. Then maybe don't plan an expensive wedding without making sure both people want it. You proposed, he shouted. I proposed before you spent months telling me my feelings were a burden. Security arrived shortly after. These people are harassing me, I said. They were escorted out, screaming about lawyers and revenge and karma. I watched them argue in the parking lot before driving away. Then I closed the door. And for the first time since this started, I felt completely at peace. I started my new job on Monday. The office was quiet in the way functional places are, focused, efficient, respectful. No one talked over me. No one rolled their eyes when I asked questions. No one treated my voice like an inconvenience. I sat at my desk, logged into my system, and felt something loosen in my chest. By late morning, my phone buzzed. An email. Subject line, please read this. It was from him. I didn't open it. I forwarded it directly to HR with one sentence. My ex-fiancé is harassing me. I have asked him not to contact me. Within the hour, HR called me. They didn't ask what I'd done wrong. They didn't ask me to explain myself. They asked what I needed. By the end of the day, they had contacted him and told him, clearly, that any further attempts to reach me through work would result in legal action. The emails to my work address stopped immediately. But that didn't end it. Thursday afternoon, a knock echoed through my apartment hallway. When I opened the door, a courier handed me an envelope. Legal papers. He was suing me. The claims were almost impressive in their audacity. Breach of promise to marry, unjust enrichment. He was demanding $11,000, half of the wedding deposits he and his family had paid. I sat on my couch for a long moment, the envelope unopened in my hands, then let out a short laugh. Friday, I met with a lawyer. $300 for the consultation. He skimmed the filing, flipped a page, then leaned back in his chair. Breach of promise to marry isn't recognized in this state, he said, and even in states where it is, he'd need proof of financial loss caused by you. He has none. You didn't pay for the wedding. So this goes nowhere? I asked. Nowhere fast, he replied. I'll respond for $700. We'll tell him he has no case and warn him that further frivolous litigation will result in you pursuing legal fees. Do it. 2 weeks later, the lawsuit was dropped. The harassment escalated. He created a fake email account, Jennifer Stone 2024. Paragraphs poured in. I hope you're happy. I hope your new life is worth destroying mine. I had to move back in with my parents at 29 because you took everything. You took the apartment. You took my stability. You took my future. I blocked it. Another email appeared. Emily Cares 8888. My therapist says you're a narcissist. She says what you did is abuse. Stonewalling is emotional abuse. I'm on anxiety medication because of you. Blocked. Then Instagram. His best friend somehow found my private account and sent a DM. You're disgusting. Do you know how bad he's doing? He barely eats. He barely sleeps. 3 years, and you threw him away like garbage. Blocked. Week 3. Security called my phone at work. There's a man in the lobby asking for you by name. My stomach tightened. I went downstairs. His father stood near the front desk, arms crossed, jaw clenched tight. "We need to talk," he said, "adult to adult." "I've asked you not to come here," I replied evenly. "You need to leave." "I drove 9 hours. The least you can do is hear me out. I don't owe you anything." "My son is destroyed," he snapped. "Destroyed? You didn't just break up with him. You humiliated him. You left him with an empty apartment and 2 weeks to find a place. He had to beg us for money." "He's 29 and living at home because he spent 3 years telling me my feelings didn't matter," I said. "Actions have consequences." "You ran away like a child," he shot back. "Women communicate." "I tried communicating," I said. Repeatedly. He shut me down every time. Security stepped between us. "Sir, it's time to go." As he was escorted out, he turned and shouted, "You're going to end up alone and miserable. You'll realize what you lost." Maybe, or maybe not. Week 4, the wedding venue called me. "We have your ex claiming you agreed to split the venue costs," the coordinator said carefully. "He's asking us to pursue you for half the deposit." "I never signed anything with you," I replied. "Check your records." They did. "We have his mother's credit card and signature," she said. "Not yours." "Then the debt is between you and them," I said. "I have no contract with you." They dropped it. His mother didn't. A certified letter arrived days later. "You are a thief. You are a liar. We will not stop until you pay what you owe." I handed it to my lawyer. He sent a cease and desist, $400. "If they contact you again," he said, "we pursue harassment charges." They stopped. For a while. Month 2, he found out where I worked. Someone must have told him. He began calling the main office line 5 times in 1 week. HR called me in. "We're issuing a formal cease and desist from our legal team," they said. "If he contacts this office again, we'll pursue legal action." They sent it. The calls stopped. But he wasn't done trying. He upgraded to LinkedIn Premium just to message me. "I know you hate me. I know you think I'm crazy. I was stressed. I took it out on you. Can we talk once? I need closure." I didn't respond. He sent 8 more messages that week, each more desperate than the last. Finally, I replied, "You told me you were done listening to my feelings. I took you seriously. There's nothing to talk about. Move on." I blocked him. That should have been the end. It wasn't. By the 3rd month, the noise hadn't stopped, but something inside me had started to wear down. Not fear, not regret. Exhaustion. It wasn't one message or one threat. It was the accumulation. The way every quiet moment felt temporary, like it could be interrupted at any time. The way my phone buzzing, even when it wasn't him, still made my shoulders tense. The way I had to explain the same situation, again and again, to HR, to security, to my lawyer, to people who believed me but still needed documentation. I had done everything right. I had left calmly. I had set boundaries. I had blocked contact. I had followed the law. And still I was being chased. One afternoon, after work, I sat alone in my apartment with the lights off. Not sad, just empty. The city outside my window hummed. Cars passing, voices drifting up from the street. But it all felt distant, like I was watching my own life through glass. I replayed the accusations in my head, not because I believe them, but because repetition has a way of sneaking under your skin. "You humiliated him. You abandoned him. You destroyed his life." I knew the facts. I had receipts, emails, dates, contracts, legal confirmations, even his own words, thrown back at me again and again. "I'm done listening to your feelings." Still, there were moments, quiet ones, when doubt tried to creep in. Not doubt about leaving. Doubt about whether I deserve peace. The certified letters stopped after the cease and desist, but the silence that followed wasn't relief. It was tension, coiled and waiting. I found myself bracing for the next escalation. Another fake account, another family member showing up unannounced, another attempt to rewrite history in a way that painted me as cruel instead of careful. Sleep became shallow. I wasn't crying. I wasn't panicking. I was just alert all the time. At work, I performed well. Too well. I stayed late, volunteered for extra tasks, filled my calendar so thoroughly there was no space left for thinking. My manager praised my focus. My teammates trusted me. On paper, I was thriving. Inside, I felt hollow. One night, I caught my reflection in the bathroom mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked composed, controlled, but her eyes were tired in a way sleep didn't fix. I thought about the version of myself from a year earlier, the woman who believed communication could fix anything, the woman who explained, softened, adjusted, tried again. That woman had disappeared quietly, sometime between being told she was too emotional and realizing that her silence was the only thing being respected. The realization hit me slowly, then all at once. I wasn't grieving him. I was grieving the cost of surviving him. Every boundary I enforced came with backlash. Every refusal to engage was reframed as cruelty. Every act of self-protection was called abuse. And the worst part? If I ever responded emotionally, if I snapped, cried, defended myself too loudly, it would only confirm the version of me they were desperate to believe in. So I stayed controlled. And that control was starting to feel like a cage. The breaking point didn't come from a message or a threat. It came from a letter I hadn't expected. A final certified envelope, different handwriting, different tone. I opened it slowly, standing at my kitchen counter. Inside was a short note from his father. No accusations, no demands, just words. He wrote that he'd found old messages on his son's phone. Messages exchanged during the wedding planning. Messages I'd never seen. Messages where I was described as exhausting. Needy. Someone who needed to be trained to stop asking for so much. He wrote that he confronted his son, that his son admitted saying those things, admitted telling me he was done listening to my feelings. I blamed you, the letter read. I shouldn't have. You did what you had to do. I'm sorry. I sat down on the floor with the letter still in my hand. I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't feel relieved. I felt tired. Tired of being strong. Tired of being composed. Tired of being right while still paying the price. I folded the letter carefully and placed it in a drawer, not as proof, not as closure, just as confirmation. I hadn't imagined it. I hadn't exaggerated it. I hadn't overreacted. And yet, knowing that didn't suddenly make me feel better. It just marked the lowest point, the moment I understood that even when the truth comes out, it doesn't undo the damage. It only tells you why you had to leave. The shift didn't come with fireworks. No dramatic confrontation, no final argument, no moment where someone suddenly admitted everything and fixed the damage. It came quietly, through confirmation, repetition, and the slow realization that I was no longer reacting. I was in control. A few days after I put his father's letter away, a mutual friend reached out. Someone I'd known long before I ever met him. Someone who had no stake in choosing sides. Hey, he said carefully, I need to ask you something. I already knew what was coming. He's telling people you ghosted him, the friend continued, that everything was fine one day and you disappeared the next. Is that true? I didn't feel defensive. I didn't feel the urge to justify myself. No, I said. He told me repeatedly that he was done listening to my feelings, that I was too emotional, so I stopped sharing, including the job offer and the move. There was a pause on the line. Oh, the friend said, he hasn't been mentioning that part. Of course not. He's saying you left him broke, that you took everything from the apartment and left him with nothing. The lease was in my name only, I said evenly. He was never on it. I didn't leave him broke. He has his own income. He had 2 weeks to figure things out. Another pause. Wow, the friend muttered. That's not the story he's telling. People who get left usually rewrite history, I said. It's easier than accountability. The conversation ended politely, calmly. And for the first time since this began, I noticed something important. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't bracing for backlash. I wasn't preparing a defense. I was stating facts. That night, another email arrived. Different tone, different subject line. No accusations, no threats. Just an apology. He wrote that he'd been in therapy, that his therapist had helped him understand how dismissive he'd been, how controlling, how often he'd minimized my feelings and framed my need for communication as weakness. I don't expect forgiveness, the email said. I don't expect a response. I just wanted you to know I understand now why you left. I read it once, then again, and felt nothing. Not anger, not satisfaction, not relief, just neutrality. That was the turning point. Not because he apologized, but because I didn't need it. I didn't respond. I didn't block him either. I simply closed the email and went on with my evening. Cooked dinner, took a walk, lived my life. The power dynamic had shifted completely. For months, I had been treated like the villain in a story he needed to survive. The cruel woman who abandoned him, the heartless one who ran away. But now, the truth existed independently of me defending it. HR had records. My lawyer had documentation. The venue had contracts. Mutual friends had context. I didn't have to convince anyone anymore. The next morning, I realized something else. I wasn't checking my phone first thing. The anxiety loop had broken. I still had boundaries, still had protections in place, but I wasn't living in anticipation of the next escalation. I wasn't holding my breath. I had reclaimed something far more important than control over the situation. I had reclaimed authority over my own narrative. He could tell his version. His family could cling to theirs. But I was no longer participating. I wasn't explaining. I wasn't defending. I wasn't reacting. I was moving forward. And once you reach that point, once the apology no longer matters and the accusations no longer land, you realize the truth. The hardest part isn't leaving. It's surviving long enough to stop caring how the people you left explain it. The fallout didn't explode all at once. It thinned out, slowly, unevenly, like a storm losing strength but still dangerous if you underestimated it. By month 3, the threats had mostly stopped, but the consequences were still landing. One afternoon, HR forwarded me a message, short, procedural. We received another call attempting to reach you. We've blocked the number and documented it. No action needed from you. I stared at the screen longer than necessary, then closed the email. No action needed. That sentence mattered more than it should have. Because for so long, everything had required action. Blocking, reporting, explaining, documenting, preparing. Now, the system was handling it, not me. A week later, another certified letter arrived. I expected the same venom. Another demand. Another accusation wrapped in legal language. Instead, it was different. It was from his father again. This time, there were no justifications. No commentary about strength or gender or communication. Just acknowledgement. He wrote that after our last encounter, he'd gone looking. Old messages, archived threads, conversations between his son and his mother during the wedding planning. The way I was described, exhausting, overly emotional, someone who needed to be managed. He wrote that he hadn't known, that he hadn't wanted to know. I blamed you because it was easier, the letter said. I was wrong. He apologized, directly, without conditions. He said he wished me well. I folded the letter carefully and placed it in the same drawer as the last one. I didn't respond, but I didn't throw it away either. Not because I needed closure, because it mattered that the truth existed somewhere outside my own head. Around the same time, a mutual friend reached out again. Just so you know, he said, people are starting to figure it out. Figure what out? That his story doesn't line up. He keeps saying you left with no warning, but the details don't add up. The lease, the job, the wedding payments. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. I'm not correcting anyone, I said. I'm done explaining. I get it, he replied. Just thought you should know it's not working anymore. That night, I sat on my couch and thought about how desperately he'd tried to control the narrative. How every escalation, the lawsuit, the emails, the family pressure, had been an attempt to force me back into a conversation I'd already ended. Not to understand me, to regain leverage. And it hadn't worked. Month 4 came quietly. No messages, no surprise appearances, no new accounts. Just absence. Then one final email arrived. Subject line, I understand now. I opened it slowly. He wrote that he'd been in therapy for months, that his therapist helped him see how dismissive he'd been, how he'd equated control with strength, how he'd learned to shut down conversations instead of engaging in them. He admitted he'd treated my emotions like inconveniences instead of information. I don't expect forgiveness, he wrote. I don't expect you to respond. I just wanted you to know I finally understand why you left. I read it 3 times and felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no urge to reply. Just distance. I closed the email and went on with my day. That was the real consequence for him. Not the lawsuit being dropped, not the family embarrassment, not the canceled wedding. It was becoming irrelevant to the person he'd tried so hard to punish. As for me, life kept expanding. Work was good, better than good. I received positive feedback, then a raise, then a performance bonus. My days filled with people who listened when I spoke and respected silence when I needed it. I dated casually. Nothing serious, no rush. I paid attention to how it felt to be heard again, how unfamiliar and calming it was. My apartment began to feel like home. New furniture, my taste, my pace. No one telling me I was too much for wanting to talk. The chaos faded. What remained was clarity. He had wanted a partner who didn't need emotional reciprocity, someone who would absorb decisions quietly and validate his authority. What he got instead was 6 weeks of silence while I planned my exit, then nothing at all. And that was the final fallout, not destruction, but disappearance. By month 6, the story had finally stopped chasing me. No new emails, no surprise calls, no family members demanding explanations I no longer owed, just quiet. Not the heavy, anxious quiet from before, but the kind that feels earned. One evening after work, I sat on my couch, legs tucked under me, lights low. The city outside my window moved at its own pace. I realized I hadn't checked my phone in hours, not out of discipline, out of disinterest. That was new. My life had filled in where the chaos used to be. The job wasn't just good, it was affirming. Another raise came through, paired with a performance bonus and a cost of living adjustment. People trusted my judgment, asked for my input, listened without defensiveness. I started seeing someone casually. Nothing dramatic, no promises. He was a teacher, calm, observant, steady. When he asked how my day was, he waited for the answer. When I spoke, he didn't interrupt. A novel concept, apparently. My apartment felt like mine now. Furniture chosen intentionally, space arranged for comfort, not compromise. Friends over for dinner. Laughter that didn't require emotional labor. And I noticed something else. I talked about my feelings again. Not cautiously, not apologetically, just honestly. With people who wanted to hear them. The irony wasn't lost on me. He had wanted a partner who didn't have needs. Someone who didn't ask questions. Someone who let decisions happen to her instead of with her. He got exactly that, for 6 weeks. Silence, compliance, no resistance, while I planned my exit. Then he got nothing. No access, no explanations, no emotional labor. Just the consequences of being taken at his word. Sometimes people think the lesson here is revenge. It isn't. The lesson is this. When someone tells you they're done listening to your feelings, believe them. When they show you that your voice is an inconvenience, stop offering it. And when you finally leave, don't let them rewrite your clarity as cruelty. Walking away wasn't dramatic. It was precise. I didn't leave to punish him. I left to protect myself. And the life I built afterward proved something simple and undeniable. I was never too emotional. I was just asking the wrong person to listen,